They say there are at least 3 things that we shouldn't talk about in polite company: politics, God, and money. And between our Torah portion and our Haftarah reading today, we've hit all 3. Shabbat Shekalim is the name for this special Shabbat, Shabbat of coinage. It sounds like an oxymoron. On Shabbat, we don't handle money, we don't buy or sell or barter. We make as if we have everything we need. It is a foretaste of the world to come. And yet we Jews are a very practical people, not a vulgar people. We can talk about these things in polite company because we are a practical people, as we always have been. Shabbat Shekalim was in ancient days when the annual campaign was launched. In the lead up to Pesach, every Jew was to bring a half shekel to help with the maintenance and the repairs of the temple that once stood in Jerusalem. The prototype for the temple was the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that portable sanctuary that we carried with us throughout the 40 years of our desert wanderings. We read about it. The half shekel was first instituted there in the wilderness. It is written, "This is what everyone shall pay, a half shekel, as an offering to the eternal God. Everyone 20 years and up shall give. The rich shall not pay any more, and the poor shall pay no less. It shall serve the Israelites as a reminder before their God." This half shekel was the great equalizer for the people. The rich and the poor made exactly the same contribution. Why? So that everyone would have equal access to the temple and to God. Everyone would claim ownership of that holy house. Everyone could stand tall before his and her God. But not everyone is the same, of course. So the building of the Mishkan did not end with the half shekel tax for everyone. It is also written, "Let everyone whose heart so moves him, let everyone bring additional gifts of the heart to the eternal God. Those who have gold, bring gold. Those who have silver and wish to share it, bring silver. Those who have copper, bring copper. And those who have blue and crimson and purple yarns, yes, if your heart so moves you, bring those too. If you have linen or tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, or acacia wood, you may be inclined to bring those as a contribution. If you have oil for lighting or spices and aromatic incense, bring those if you would." Among the people there was a range of access to these precious goods, but the access to their God was one and the same. And as we heard, there was also a range of skill among the people. Each one was called upon to do his and her part. It is written in great detail. They made bars of acacia wood, 5 planks of the one side wall of the tabernacle. Who is they? It does not say. It is written, "And they made blue, purple, and crimson yarns for the curtains." Who were they? It does not say. "And they, over there, made 50 copper clasps to hold the tent together so that it might become one, whole. Lechaber et ha'ohel lihiot echad." The holy space was made whole through this shared work. The woodworkers and the metalworkers were anonymous. The women at the looms go unnamed. But because everyone had a role to play, the Mishkan, the sanctuary, became whole. One. This is the teaching of the 19th century Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Lehner. He observes that in the building of the tabernacle, all Israel were joined together in their hearts. No one felt superior to any other. At first, each skilled worker did his own part of the construction, and it seemed that each one of his work was extraordinary. But afterwards, once they saw how their several contributions to the service of the tabernacle were integrated, how they became one with the works of all the others, how the boards and the sockets and the curtains and the loops fit together, as if one artisan had accomplished the whole endeavor, then they realized how each one of them had depended on the other. Then they understood how what all they had accomplished was not by virtue of their own skill alone, but by the skill of the Holy One, who guided their hands. Only later did they join together to understand this master plan, and then that holy place became echad, one and united. It is said that the one who made the holy ark was no different and saw himself as no different than the one who made the tent pegs that dug into the ground in the far outer courtyard. Perhaps this is why a half shekel. One half calls out for the other half. One half shekel says to the other, complete me. Make me whole. I cannot do it alone, for no Jew ever could. Even Abraham needed Sarah in order to fulfill his courageous mission to bring justice to the world. Moses needed Miriam and Aaron in order to take his long journey to strike a lasting covenant between God and the Jewish people. Each half shekel calls out, I need a partner. In fact, I need many partners to make this place echad, whole and holy in the eyes of the Holy One. Each act of generosity needs to be met by another if we have any chance of shalom. I hope you know by now that we at Holy Blossom are in the midst of our own building project. There are many lessons that we can draw out from our Torah portion and our Haftarah portion regarding how we also must build. And allow me today just to name a few. I don't speak of it very often from this bima, but I want to ask that you will become our ambassadors and help to get the good word out there into the community. First of all, we are not building a building. We aren't even building a house of God. We are building Jews. God forbid we get caught up in the excitement of the building that we forget what it is for. There is such a thing as the edifice complex. When the building, which is intended to be the vehicle for reaching out to our God, becomes the God itself. And that, of course, is another name for idolatry. The good people who are leading this effort know what they are doing, and they know very well why we are doing it. It is for our sons and daughters, for yours and mine. It is for Rachel and for her friends. We call it renewal of space and renewal of spirit, a constant reminder that we are in the business of building Jews. We are in the business of building Jewish life. The physical space will help us to do it, in form and in function. It will not only work for us, but it will inspire us. It will enable us to be the Kehillah Kedoshah, the sacred community that we strive to be. Another point along these lines. Every synagogue should be at least three things: a Beit Tefillah, a Beit Midrash, and a Beit Knesset. The Beit Tefillah might speak to the heart. Beit Midrash speaks to learning. heady pursuits. And the Beit Knesset speaks of the work of our hands. So when this building of Holy Blossom Temple was built in 1938, dedicated in 1938, it was primarily a Beit Tefillah, a house of prayer, a house of worship. The vaulted ceilings and all the grandeur of the sanctuary say that the emphasis of our work should be Godward, and our prayers must be lofty. And then, some remember, in the 1960s, we built the Beit Midrash, the school wing. 3 stories, many classrooms. The emphasis was on the learning, matters of the intellect, both for adults and for children. And today, we build the Beit Knesset. Not that we haven't been doing that work all along, but now with the atrium, that central gathering place, we will have a designated mortar and brick, glass and steel space to call attention to the very important work that is done by a Beit Knesset, drawing nearer to one another along the human plane. There we will meet and greet one another, sometimes planned, sometimes spontaneously. It will be an inviting and comfortable and light-filled open space where we will want to linger, as our ancestors did in biblical times, in the courtyards of the Beit HaMikdash. And in that atrium, there will be something called a tzedakah center, which reminds me of that chest that we read about in the Haftarah portion. And our architects have designed it in a very innovative way. I asked, how can we have a collecting bin for things that people want to donate? It could be that a bat mitzvah girl wants to collect goods to go to new refugees coming to this country. Where could be a place where people could drop off those things to support her efforts? Or if a physician in the congregation is going to Africa for a medical mission and wants to invite the congregation to join in and drop off used eyeglasses that can help someone to see. Where can we have a collection bin like that? That would be also beautiful. And the architects have designed something with many drawers and many compartments of all different kinds. Each one can carry a new label as the mitzvah changes. And it's built in the shape of our campus, where the sanctuary is one drawer and the school wing is another drawer. Can you picture it? And the tallest, most narrow collection bin is the tower that we have, Jacob's Tower. And that will be the pushke, where we can drop in our coins. So this will sit in the middle of our atrium, our Beit Knesset, and remind us how we can connect to one another on the human plane through our good works. Just as the Mishkan was built with many symbols to teach about core Jewish values, like the rabbis teach us that the hooks and the loops and the clasps that were made of glimmering metals were to stand for the stars of the sky. And when we would look upon them, we would be reminded of the promise that God made to Abraham. God said, "Look to the stars and count them if you are able. So many will be your descendants." Similarly, we have our eye on our descendants, on future generations that will come through these halls. That is the primary driver for this renewal project of space and spirit. We have our eyes on young families and our children. And so the space will be designed with them in mind. Another example of core values that will be expressed through the mortar and brick, accessibility. We need to know that everyone can find his and her way through our halls. That's why we talk so much about this elevator. We could not start without the elevator that would enable everyone to get to every floor of our synagogue. We also have the value of caring for the environment, and so we will meet the criteria for LEED certification, making sure that our building is responsible on the environmental scale. And we care about our legacy as the first synagogue of this city. And so throughout the building, there will be many ways to learn about our past that we treasure, that we hold dear, and that we still take inspiration from. And Israel. There will be something resembling Jerusalem stone so that we can cast our eyes on it and remember Jerusalem. There will also be a creative way for people to bring stones back from Israel. When you travel there, you can bring a stone and add it to this collection area, and it will become part of the artwork of our building. So in many creative ways, small and large, we see how our core Jewish values are built into the design. Now, it is asked, are we to interpret the words of our sages who say, every tzaddik in whose day the temple is not built is no tzaddik at all? How do we interpret that? To be a tzaddik, to be a righteous person, if you are not actively building the temple, you are not a tzaddik. How could that be so? For 2,000 years, we were without access to the Temple Mount. How could that be so? The answer comes that tzaddikim, the righteous ones, are often focused on building the upper sanctuary, the heavenly realm, the heavenly abode, where God, so to speak, resides. And that kind of tzaddik is no tzaddik at all. If the tzaddikim do not also do their part in building the sanctuary here on earth, whether it's at 1950 Bathurst Street or elsewhere, then he is no tzaddik. Then she is not yet fully righteous. We must participate both in the heavenly world and in the here and now, in this world, so that we can chain heaven to earth. You know that expression, if you build it, they will come? It could be that some will be attracted to a beautiful building. I do believe our numbers will increase when we have a building that is inviting and inspiring. But most of all, I am sure that a community that builds together is what attracts. A community that sets its aspirations high and says we can, so long as we have one another in mind. When we bring together those clasps so that the building project is echad, and the fingerprints of every one of us is all over it, that is how we fulfill God's command. V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Make for me a sanctuary so that I will dwell among you. Ken yehi ratzon. So may it be God's will.